Hello, my name is Sam Rhodes. I am a lecturer at Utah Valley University, and I'm a guest today because my wife is a teacher at the JCOM department, and I am the only guest available in our home. And I just so happen to be knowledgeable about fake news and political science because I teach political science at Utah Valley University, and my research focuses on fake news and how to find reliable information. This is an important topic to cover because it can be overwhelming in the midst of a pandemic on the scale and size of COVID-19 to find good, reliable information from doctors and politicians and journalists about what's important and what you need to focus on as a citizen affected by this important event. Remember, just because something is viral or is being shared by a lot of people doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Viral content is shared simply because it's popular or it might be funny. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's reliable information. A good general rule of thumb when you're looking at information on social media is to find experts, people that are in positions of power in government, for example, the governor's office or the lieutenant governor's office, who are able to share information from State Department of Health and people that are really involved on the local level of what you need to know as someone who lives in Utah. Public media like NPR is a great source. They have a podcast, Up First in the Morning, which is uploaded every morning at 5 or 6 in the morning, and they spend about 4 to 5 minutes covering the big news stories of the day, what's happening in Washington, D.C. and other world capitals as all of Earth tries to deal with this pandemic. If you prefer watching news on YouTube, PBS NewsHour every night produces hour-long videos that you can watch where they interview experts and talk about the scale of the pandemic. Also very informative. I'd recommend the Wall Street Journal's daily podcast called The Journal, which is just really focused on what's happening in the economy, what's happening in other countries' economies. Very informative. The New York Times Daily podcast is great. They recently had a reporter whose husband was unfortunately infected and suffered quite a bit from the COVID-19 outbreak, and they shared a podcast about what life was like, sort of on the ground in New York City, which has turned out to be one of the epicenters for this disease, and that's really good for just sort of maybe focusing on what's happening on an individual level as opposed to what's happening at the macro level. It can be overwhelming to sift through all the information, but it's important for regular people like you and I to know and have a good grip on this because this affects us all. This is a contagious disease, and it helps to know to be informed so you know how to make good decisions. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to talk with you again soon.